Hello everyone, I am Anirudh Murarka, an ISB alumnus and the Chief Mentor at IMS International. After almost a decade in the test prep industry, I have heard one question more than any other from students aiming for global schools, GMAT or GRE. Today, armed with my 10 years of expertise, let's dive deep into both the tests. We'll compare them on various parameters, and by the end of this video, I hope you have a clear idea of whether GMAT or GRE is your best fit. So, let's begin. Alright, so first let's look at the test format. Both the GRE and the GMAT are adaptive tests, but the GRE is a section adaptive test, whereas GMAT is a question adaptive test. Now, to know more about this adaptive nature of both these tests, I would recommend that you look at our videos, which we have linked in the description. Okay, now let's have a look at the test structure. How does these two tests look like? So, in GRE, you will find that there are a total of 5 sections. 1 of analytical writing, 2 of verbal reasoning, and 2 of quantitative reasoning. In AWA, you will find an issue on which you have to write your views, and for that you will be getting 30 minutes. In verbal, you will find 2 sections with 12 and 15 questions, for which you get 18 and 23 minutes respectively to solve. And in quantitative reasoning, again you will find 12 and 15 questions, but over here you get 3 minutes extra with 21 and 26 minutes to solve them. If we look at the GMAT pattern, in GMAT you will find only 3 sections: quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and data insights. In all the 3 sections, you will have 45 minutes to solve, but the number of questions would vary. 21, 23, and 20 is what you will find in these respective sections. So, if you look at the entire time, overall, you would be getting 1 hour 58 minutes for your GRE, and for your GMAT, you would be getting 2 hours and 15 minutes. Now, this does not include the breaks that you will find in these examinations. In GRE, after every section, you get 1 minute in which the screen changes from one section to another. Whereas in GMAT, you get one optional break of 10 minutes. I mean, you can take it, but can only be taken once. Moving ahead, the scoring pattern. So, in GRE, you do not get an overall score. You get different scores for quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical writing. In quantitative reasoning, your score would range from 130 to 170 with increments of 1 point. So, it could be a 155, 156, 157, etc. Whereas, in analytical writing, you would be getting scores from 0 to 6. But over here, the increments would be in points of 0.5. So maybe a 2 or a 2.5 or a 3, right? For GMAT, you do get an overall score. Now, your overall score would be ranging between 205 to 805 with 10-point increments. So maybe you could get a 375, 575, 675, etc. And you do get a different section score as well. So for quant, you will get a separate score. For verbal and DI, you will get separate scores. And they would be ranging from 60 to 90, where obviously 60 being the lowest and 90 being the highest. Alright, now this is the section breakup for your GMAT score. On the top left, you will find for DI, in the middle you will find for verbal, and in the right you will find the quantitative reasoning, and below you will find the overall scores. And this is your score for GRE. Now, there is some important things that you need to consider. So, if you get the maximum points in GRE, let's say in the verbal section, you are at the 99th percentile, whereas for quantitative reasoning, if you get the maximum 170 points, you are at the 92nd percentile. Please do not make this error of comparing that percentile with the percentile over here. I mean, if you look at the detailed view that is present on their website, over there you will find that the 92nd percentile comes at 86 points. So, in GMAT, it is possible to get a 100 percentile in your quant section, but in your GRE, it is not possible to get a 100 percentile. So, do not try to compare both these scores. There is no way of comparing both these examinations. So, I have seen a lot of students make this error that, okay, Anirudh, I can get a 92nd percentile in the GRE and that I will get at a 170, which is same as getting a 92nd percentile in GMAT that comes at 86 points. No, you cannot compare this way because these two exams are tested in a different manner. Their scoring happens in a different manner. So that concept of percentile won't match over here. So don't make that error. This is the only point you need to consider. All right, moving ahead. Now, if we talk about the cost of these examinations, GRE is a $220 examination, whereas GMAT is a $275 examination for Indian test takers. And obviously, if you are in India, you will have to pay an 18% GST over it as well, right? Moving ahead. Now, if let's say my exam doesn't go as planned, can I retake the examination, or do I have to wait for another year? No, you can retake the examination. How does that happen? You will have to wait for 21 days before you can retake the GRE, and you will have to wait for 16 days before you can retake the GMAT. Now, in an entire 12-month rolling period, you can appear for this examination a maximum of 5 times, both for GRE and GMAT. But GRE has no lifetime limit, whereas GMAT has a lifetime limit of 8 attempts. So keep that in mind before you book your dates. Alright, moving ahead, if we talk about the score validity, both the examinations are going to be valid for 5 years. So if you are somebody who wants to take the examination right now and apply maybe a couple of years later, you can do that. Moving ahead, now, if you have taken the examination, that means you are going to apply to some or the other program. How does that work? So, with GRE, you can apply to 4 programs at no cost. Now, what do we mean by that? Even before your examination begins, so let's say you have gone to the test center, even before your examination begins, you have to select 4 programs. Now, what do we do with these 4 programs? There's a body that goes by the name of ETS, that is a conducting body. So, ETS will be sending your scores to these 4 programs at absolutely no cost. But for every additional program after that, you will have to pay $27. Now, the same things for GMAT. There's a slight advantage over here. You get to choose 5 programs at no cost. Who sends this? Not ETS. ETS is for GRE. For GMAT, the conducting body is GMAC. So, that body would be sending your scores to 5 different programs, and you get to choose those 5 programs at a later stage. I mean, once your unofficial score comes in front of you, as soon as your exam gets over, you get your unofficial score. Once your official score comes, that is when you have to choose these 5 programs. So, in GMAT, you have that advantage of choosing your programs at a later stage. You don't have that advantage while taking your GRE. So, these programs need to be decided within 48 hours after your official scorecard comes. Now, for every additional program, this is slightly expensive. You will have to pay $35 for every additional program that you choose. Moving ahead. Now, if we talk about who are the people who should be giving these examinations, I mean, what is the target audience for GRE and what is the target audience for GMAT? So, GRE in a way is a very general examination that can be taken if you want to apply to a, let's say, law school or a STEM program or even a business school. Whereas GMAT has always boasted this fact that we are an examination that has been specifically designed for business schools. So GMAT takes huge pride in that. So that is something you should know. If you are somebody who is planning to go for a business school, you can take the GRE, that is a general examination, and business schools also accept it, or you can take the GMAT that is specifically designed for business schools. I mean, if we look at the data, if there are 10 applicants, if there are 10 people who have gone in a business school, 9 out of them have roughly taken the GMAT and roughly 1 or 15% of the candidates have taken the GRE. This is a very rough data that I am presenting to you. This could be there could be a possibility that GRE has been very recently been accepted as a qualifying score. So the acceptance in the colleges is increasing gradually. That could be a possibility. But as of now, majority of the students who are going in via GMAT. And let me be very clear, the colleges have mentioned on their websites, the colleges have come out in the open and told that we are not distinguishing between a GRE test taker or a GMAT test taker. You need to decide which test would suit you better, right? It is the examination that is telling that, okay, GRE, I am somebody who is for all general programs, maybe a STEM program or a law program. GMAT is telling that I am specifically for business schools. The business schools are not distinguishing between any of these test takers. So keep that in mind. All right. Moving ahead. So this is the last part of our discussion, that how should you decide whether you want to go for GRE or GMAT. So first things first, you need to check your program. I mean, if you're going for a STEM program, as we discussed, it's a no-brainer that you should take the GRE. But if you are somebody who wants to go for a business school, it accepts both GRE and GMAT. So what should I go for, right? So for that, you should look at the program. There are some recruiters who might want to look at your GMAT score, but there is no hard and fast rule. But there might be some recruiters who would want to look at your GMAT score. But hey, the recruiters would come at a later stage. Firstly, the admission in college should happen. And if I am better at taking the GRE, I should take the GRE. We can convince the recruiter at a later stage that why I am the perfect candidate for your company. Before the company, the college would come. So we need to get into the college first. And if you are comfortable taking the GRE, you should go for it. But before deciding that, let's have a look at the GRE quant versus GMAT quant and the GRE verbal versus GMAT verbal. That might ease your minds. Now, in GRE, you will find that the questions are pretty straightforward. But in GMAT quant, you will find that the questions are very descriptive. You will have to probably extract some data from the question and then solve it. But that is what might be the business school would be looking for. We don't know. So in GRE quant, you will find that the test is very, I won't say it's simple, but very manageable. Same goes for GMAT as well. It is manageable, but yes, you will have to extract the data. You will have to read the sentences. You will have to read between the lines. If we talk about GRE verbal versus GMAT verbal, GRE is very vocab intensive. If you are somebody who is comfortable with words, GRE verbal would be a walk in the park for you. Whereas if you are somebody who likes to think, who can analyze an argument critically, who is somebody who is comfortable reading long passages, GMAT verbal is something that you can easily cope with, because in GMAT verbal you will not find questions based on vocabulary, whereas in GRE verbal you will find roughly 50% of the questions that will require your vocab to be very strong. Now, there are obviously some sections that you might be comfortable for GRE or for GMAT. So the best thing that you can do right now is take a mock. There are official mocks that are freely available for you. You don't have to even pay for them. For GMAT, there are 2 mocks freely available, and for GRE, there is 1 mock freely available. Go for it, attempt it, then take a call that which exam pattern is suiting you better. Because as I said, if you want to get into the college, we should have a decent enough score. We should have a score that is matching their class profile. And then later on worry about whether a recruiting company is going to look at my GRE or a GMAT score, right? You need to look at your convenience, which exam is suiting you better, right? So on that note, that's it from my end. This is Anirudh Murarka signing off. If you still have any questions, let us know in the comment section and we would be more than happy to get back to you.